A lot of people might use breath work as a tool to ease their anxiety or cope with their anxiety. Whereas I'm looking at how can we use breath work to eradicate your anxiety altogether by getting to the root of where it started and moving that out of the body using the breath so that it's not something you have to cope with anymore. Should I become a breathwork facilitator? Today, I'm going to answer that question. As you might know if you've been following me for a while, I discovered breathwork in 2001, and I have been a breathwork facilitator since about 2002. For more than half of my life, it's been a very long time. And I now have a breathwork certification program that I've been running for the last 4 years. And I wanted to share some common questions that I get pretty regularly. And this isn't about necessarily my breathwork certification, but if you are somebody who is questioning whether or not you want to become a breathwork facilitator, I am going to answer some of the questions that you probably have, because these are questions I get all the time, and help you get clarity as to whether this is something you want to pursue and what are some of the potential benefits that you could have from going through breathwork facilitator training, whether or not you want to pursue doing it as a business or incorporating it into your business that you already have. Question number one. There's so many breathwork facilitator trainings out there. How do I figure out which one is for me? So, there's no easy answer to this question, but, I get a lot of people asking about my certification, and they're kind of shopping around, looking at different certifications. And I think it's important to trust what you're drawn to, but B, there's so many different lenses or perspectives on breathwork now, right? Like when I started learning breathwork, it was something that nobody really knew about. This is in 2001, and no one really knew what breathwork was. It wasn't a common thing that was talked about. So there wasn't a lot out there. There wasn't a lot to choose from. I was very lucky that there was an incredible breathwork community right here in Philadelphia where I live, but it wasn't something that you could find online like you can now. Now it's a common thing that everybody knows about. So I think now it's a lot harder to figure out like, which one do I want to do? And there are so many different teachers, so many different facilitators, and so many people that have different lenses on breathwork. Some people use it more as like a productivity tool, or like, what I call that like bro breathwork, where they're really like, breathe in, breathe out, like move forward, get motivated, that kind of thing. And some people have more of like a softer healing slant to what they're doing. Some people are tapping in more to like the higher realms, or your intuition, or your creativity, or your higher self. And for me, I have much more of a lens on trauma and childhood wounding, based on my past as a school counselor, working with traumatized children, and really looking at over the last 25 years, what is it that creates results quickly? When people are stuck in a pattern, or they're stuck in indecision, or they're repeating the same kind of relationships over and over again, or they want to change careers or start a business and they feel stuck and they've been stopping and starting for years and they don't know how to get out of the starting gates, I'm always looking at what is the fastest, most efficient, most direct way to create change. And that's how I started to really do more of the inner child stuff with people, because the biggest reason why we get stuck is because we are unconsciously repeating patterns from childhood, or we are operating from foundational beliefs that were created in childhood that are limiting us based on our self-worth, or our deservingness, or shame, guilt, fear of abandonment. And when we can really access the origination point of when those patterns were created, we can move through the suppressed emotions around it that are stored in the body using the breath, and then creating change and moving beyond those patterns happens naturally because they're no longer held in the body, right? So my perspective is so much around how do we create change quickly, and how can I make this as tangible as possible for you so that you can share it with your clients in the most tangible way possible, the simplest way possible, and the most direct way to create the change that you desire. So I'm always really looking at what is the cause instead of what is the symptom, right? So a lot of people might use breath work as a tool to ease their anxiety or cope with their anxiety. Whereas I'm looking at how can we use breath work to eradicate your anxiety altogether by getting to the root of where it started and moving that out of the body using the breath, so that it's not something you have to cope with anymore. It's not something that exists within you anymore at all, right? So that's really like my take on it. But maybe you feel drawn to someone else's take on it. And I think that's really important to look at when you are deciding on which training to go with, really looking at, well, what do I really like to use breathwork for? What draws me to breathwork specifically? And what are the things that I really have gotten out of it? And then finding a training that really aligns with those things, the things that are important to you. And also, if you already work with clients, what training aligns with the work that you're already doing with clients and that you want to bring forward more with your clients. So I think it's important to trust your intuition, trust what you're drawn to, but also just looking at what are your intentions, what is your perspective, what is the lens you're looking at breathwork through, and then looking for a training that really aligns with that, a teacher that really aligns with that. And sometimes you find a teacher that you just really resonate with, you just really like their energy, you like how they show up, you feel like they have integrity, you trust them, and that's really important too, because I think you want to be able to trust, obviously, the person that is teaching you. However, I also think it's important to really be discerning around what you choose, because when we look at a tool like breathwork has the power to bring up unconscious wounding from childhood that can be really uncomfortable and can be scary or hard to look at times. And you want to learn from somebody that is really qualified and has the skill set to hold space and walk somebody through those deeper, uncomfortable, traumatic feelings that come up during a breathwork session. Because if they don't, or if you don't, then it's easy to re-traumatize yourself or create more harm rather than growth. And I think that's something really important to look at as well, like the training or the teacher, making sure they have a good deal of experience, they walk their talk, they do their own work, and they have a high level of integrity around how they're showing up and how they're facilitating, and really have the skill set to hold a safe space where there's no projections happening, there's a high level of self-awareness, and there's really a slant towards looking at what is in your own subconscious so that you don't bring it forward into any of the sessions you have with people. And to me, that's one of the most important things. It's one of the things that I hold nearest and dearest and closest to my heart, is how I can train people to show up, put all of their stuff to the side, and hold a really safe, pristine, clear energy so that the client can process their own emotions and make sense of what they're feeling and what they're experiencing, and be able to make their own decisions without someone else telling them what to do. And that's something I feel very passionately about, is real transformation occurs when you have a safe container to feel your feelings, process what you've suppressed, and then be able to move forward in a way that really works for you, making decisions that come from your own clarity that you've received after moving through your own suppressed unconscious emotions. And that's how transformation really happens. Okay, second question. I feel drawn to helping people, but I have no prior experience and I have doubts about whether I can do it. So this is a very common question, and here's what I want to say. If you feel drawn to something, that is your soul pointing you in the direction you're meant to go. It's like a signpost. Go this way, turn right here. Anytime you feel drawn to something, it's very important to trust that. I always make the joke that you're not sitting here thinking like, I should really be building a skyscraper, because you're not supposed to build a skyscraper. But if you feel drawn to doing something like facilitating breath work, if you feel that pull, if you're thinking about it, it's very important for you to listen to that and explore it. Honor that desire, that pull that you have, because that is your soul pointing you in the right direction. Number two, I can't necessarily speak to all the certifications out there, but I can speak to mine, which, I've been running for the last 4 years now. And my breathwork certification, the Metamorphosis method, is very focused on healing from childhood wounding and trauma and helping people create simple, tangible, permanent changes in their lives that they've been trying really hard to do and haven't had success with yet. If you feel drawn to helping people create changes in their lives, helping women, for example, find and claim their power and their value, then breathwork is an amazing, incredible tool to help people do that, because it goes beyond the mind, it goes beyond the intellect, and helps you clear stuck energy, suppressed emotions out of the body, and it brings you into yourself. It connects you to yourself so you can really walk people through a journey of releasing what's holding them back and coming back to the truth of who they are. So it's the fastest tool to clear what's holding you back and come back to the truth of who you are and what it is that you really want to do. I always say for people that come into this work that you don't have to figure out what your purpose is or discover your purpose. When you do this work, it's just one of those things where you're like, oh, duh, I always knew that, but I wouldn't admit it to myself, or I was too scared to admit it, right? So that's what happens when you use a tool like breathwork, and it gives you a ton of momentum because you're moving energy, right? Connecting with yourself. So if you want to learn how to help people create changes in their lives and empower people, this is probably the best tool that you could learn how to facilitate and help people with. It's important not to doubt yourself if you feel drawn to it. That's the moral of the story. And the last question that I get all the time, I already have a coaching, healing, fitness, or physical therapy practice or something like that. Will I be able to incorporate it into what I do? So this is something that is incredibly common with the women who come into my certification. A lot of them already have some sort of practice, whether they're a therapist, a doula, a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, a fitness coaching business, a business coaching business, some sort of healer, they're an energy healer, a Reiki master. Anything like that, if you already do something where you are helping people facilitate change, you're helping people grow, having this tool to use breathwork in tandem with what you already do is something that will accelerate the results you get with your clients, and it will really help you to grow your own practice. Because you will be able to get your clients' results faster. You'll be able to get to the root of what's going on with them, and it'll accelerate your own growth. So anything that might have been holding you back in growing your business before will start to shift. And I've seen this with everybody that comes through my certification, where when they start incorporating breath work, their clients start to accelerate the results. And I have a lot of women who come in who say, I feel like there's a deeper layer that I can get to with my clients. I feel like there's something that's stopping them that I'm not quite able to put my finger on. And you learn how to do that through my certification. But if you're somebody who already has a practice and you want to be able to take your clients deeper, learning to facilitate breathwork is an incredibly fast, efficient, surefire way to be able to do that. And you can really learn to incorporate it in a way that works for you and supports your clients with all the other tools that you're bringing to the table, right? So if you already have a business where you are helping people create change, this is one of the best tools that you can incorporate. So 100% yes. Those are some of the 3 of the biggest questions I get However, if you have other questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Let me know if this resonated with you. If you'd like information about my certification, we'll drop that link below. That's gonna start in the beginning of September this year. So reach out if you have questions about that or anything else. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time.